Hello. I'm pulling faces because it's saying I've got a poor network connection, but it's gone away now, so I can stop pulling faces. And I should really iron my t-shirts. I'm going to try and look vaguely professional, shouldn't I? Hey ho, the joys of this life at the moment. Take my socks off. You're more professional. Start stripping off while you're doing your class. So what we're doing today, I'm just going to do a little drag up from the bottom. I really should work out how you can get the comments to sort of appear. No, that just makes you disappear. Anyway, so if you're watching this some other time other than Thursday night on the 9th of April, I think it's the 9th. Hopefully, it's Easter tomorrow. There you go. Hello, whoever's out there. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do a lot of side lying stuff. So this is not something we normally kind of move around in the class. We're going to do some arch and curls. We'll start with that, our usual pattern, because you want to get your spine moving, we want to loosen everything up. We'll do some side legs and we'll do some side arms. We'll get a twist going in the side of our body through the midline and through the middle, and then we're going to do some side lying work. So we're going to connect into our waist, into our shoulders, into our neck, into our hips, our bum, and down our legs, into our bottom, into our back. So we're going to just get this whole connection going on. So you've got wonderfully loose long sides, your neck's more mobile, your shoulders don't ache, and these are going to be wonderful things that you could do in bed. So if your neck starts aching in bed and you're lying on your side, you could just do this. They'll make you nod off quite quickly, to be fair. Same in the hip. If you're lying, a lot of us get a pain when we lie on our sides, either lying on the lower hip or pain in the upper hip, and this really helps. If you are getting pain in your upper or lower hips, I would use a pillow between the legs. I know it sounds a bit old and a bit granny, but it does work. It does really help. So because it takes the tightness out of the inner thigh muscles, which usually cause the problem in the bottom. So just as a tip. So I'm going to just show you what we're going to do. We are going to do our normal arch and curl. I'm just going to remind people, because there might be people new to this for the first time doing this. So I'm just going to remind you of the arch and curl. Slide down a bit. So you'll have your legs up, you'll have your feet hip distance apart, and we arch and curl by breathing in, tilting the pelvis forward, breathing out, tilting the pelvis back. So that's our movement, arch and curl, tilting the pelvis forward and back, and the same applies in the shoulders. Breathe in, the shoulders go back, breathe out, the shoulders come forward. Same applies in the neck. I'll just move down. So the neck, you breathe in, your neck will lengthen at the back and shorten at the front, and as you breathe in, your neck will jut forward. So we get this movement. You just watch my chin. Yeah, so that's the movement that's happening in the neck when we arch and curl. So you get an arch and curl going on in the neck as well. We're going to just do some legs side to side, either stuck together or just moving like this. We're going to do some arms side to side like this, just to get the upper and lower body moving horizontally as well. So we get a nice twist through the back, and then we're going to go to side lying. And when we're on our side, we're going to bring our knees up to 90 degrees to the body. 90-degree calves to the thighs, and then we'll slide down a bit so you can actually see me, and then we're going to have our arm on the side of our body, and that's the position we're going to stay in. So you can either have a pillow or you can have your arm underneath you, but make sure your shoulders stacked. We don't want it kind of tucked under here, we don't want it rolling forward. We want to make sure that you're on top of your shoulders, so everything's kind of perpendicular, is that the right word? Brain's not working. Anyway, so everything is kind of parallel, perpendicular, not sort of tilting off at different angles. And we're going to be doing shoulder lifts and lengthens, which lengthens the side of the body underneath. We're going to change the angle of that, so we're going to bring the shoulders forward and back. We're going to do that movement. We keep everything soft through the side, so our arm's not up in the air when we're doing any of this. And we're going to change the angle and go up and down with our shoulder forward. We're going to go up and down with our shoulder back. We're going to do forward and back with our shoulder high. We're going to do forward and back with our shoulder low. So we're really changing the angles all around the chest and lengthening in different spaces and planes. And then we're going to do some shoulder circles in a very slow way. And then we're going to repeat this in the hip. So we'll come down to the hip and we'll do hip up and down. We have to use our hands, some of us, to do this movement. And then we'll do upper knee forward and back. You can see this because I've got my stripes on today, so you'll be able to see that I'm sliding this knee further than the other one. What you're going to have to watch is keeping your torso still. So that's the aim of this, keep our torso still. This is my not so great hip, so my torso's trying to move with it. So I would do this in a much smaller way than I'm showing you. So we do up and down, forward and back, and then we'll do some hip rounds. Yeah, we're not going to change the angle like we do in the shoulder because that's quite intense for the hip to hold the leg forward and then go up and down. That's for another day. And then to finish, we're going to, so this will take, it's quite a slow process today, but it's really worth doing. The difference is amazing. And then we're going to do our, I'm going to slide up for this. We're going to do our side leg lifts. So what that involves is you being at 90-degree angles, really concentrating on whether you're rolling back, forward or back, and then we're just going to leave the lower calf where it is and breathe out and lift the foot up. And you're trying to keep it at 90-degree angles to the thigh. So if it starts going back, you know you've got a bit of a problem. It's your other muscles that aren't doing the right job. So we want to get our waist moving, and we'll be doing this movement. Okay, so shoulder, hip, and then waist and side. And then when we've done that a few rounds, we'll bring the arm in and we'll reach down the body. Okay, so by then we'll be nice and loose in all the areas that we've been working earlier. So this will be really easy and controlled. And then we'll start concentrating on the lower waist at the same time, just to make sure that you're fully aware of what muscles are activating, what's going on. All right. So that's our class for today. It doesn't seem like there's many moves, but they are quite slow. It's very slow. What you might find today is that it's hard to concentrate because they are small movements. We're going to go back and forth over areas, so we're going to find all our areas that don't work very well. So it's quite, it's not as many moves, but it's quite intense. So it's really good for loosening shoulders, loosening hips, you know, where you get this pain in the hip here, where you get neck pain, where you get neck pain, shoulder pain in the back between your shoulder blades, where you get chest too tight, it causes problems down your arms, and you get lower back or waist pain. So, oh, look at that lovely stain. No, don't look at that, don't look too closely. So yes, so that's what we're going to be doing. We've got a couple of minutes. If anybody's got any questions, I want to say hi. I know there's a couple of people out there. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm a bit silly with this. I moved the comments out of the way. I should just leave them in and then people can write. So if you are there, write something and just let me know. Let me know if the sound's all right. Let me know if you missed anything, and I'll just be very concise with my instructions when I'm doing the actual class itself. So it's a 45-minute class. We might go over a bit, we might go under a bit. Either way. Try and have a little rest at the end. Rest in between everything. Try and concentrate, try and stay in your body. If you're getting distracted, because it is going to be hard to concentrate because we're doing small moves, so you'll get distracted, you might want to fall asleep, your brain will go, oh God, I've had enough of this, and that's what it does. But that's why it's so good to do it at night, in bed when you're feeling pain, or you just can't get sleep. It's a really good thing to do generally. And then, yeah, I forgot what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's what we're going to do today. Yeah, so have a rest in between, have a rest at the end, and try and kind of keep coming back to my voice. I will ramble away as ever. Good job I'm a rambler, isn't it? Because, you know, it'll keep your attention, keep bringing you back when you're dropping off. And I'll try not to drop off myself. It's very warm in this cabin, very warm. And my cat's taken to meowing outside, so, well, that'll be a good distraction, won't it, anyway? So, we've got a couple of minutes just to see if anybody else wants to join. Give me a little. I can't see my comments. It's really annoying. If you have written a comment, I do apologise. I can't see them for some reason. I don't know how to get them back without switching people off or doing something weird. Oh, wonderful. No, that's not going to do it, is it? No. It's annoying. Having me just scrolling back and forth. Anyway, there's 2 people that I can see are watching. Hello. If you stay with me the whole time, great. If you don't, maybe you'll catch up with it another time. But do try and stay. Try, even if you just watch the whole thing through so you get a really good idea of what this is all about. If you're somebody that's been doing this for a long time, great. We haven't done this for ages, so this would be good for you to remind you of this one. I don't tend to do it too much in the class because it takes a long time, it takes a lot of concentrating. In the class, in the physical classes where we go outside and we go into a hall, but we don't do that anymore. Anyway, enough rambling. I think I'm going to start. So make sure you are comfortable. You probably need a pillow. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm going to take my glasses off. Ta-da! Now I can't see anything. So let's have a scan. So let's lie down. You don't really need to see my head anymore. Let's have a scan. Lengthen your legs down. And somebody else has joined us. Hello. Remember, you're not really watching me. Try and just listen. Try and just stay within your body. Try and keep your head down as much as you can. Head on the pillow. When you turn over onto your side, make sure you're doing it gently and you're not lifting your head up. We want to protect our nervous system. We want our sympathetic nervous system to be really calm. Get rid of the fight or flight that we're having at the moment. I don't know about you, but I'm having it every 5 seconds. So let's have a little calm down. So we'll scan. Let's scan the side of our bodies. Let's start at our head and let's travel down each side. So taking your ears around your jaw into your neck. So we're going that way. We're kind of doing rather than front and back, we're doing sides. We'll see what our neck's doing, how our arms feel. The position of everything. My left shoulder blade's kind of down into the floor, my right's up in the air, and for some reason, dog ball throwing for you. And we're scanning down. Make sure you take in your waist, how your rib cage moves. Still doing the front and back of the chest. When you get down to the waist, notice if there's anything going on in the lower back, the front of the abdomen, around the front and back of the pelvis, the side of the pelvis, all the muscles that attach in. Soften the jaw as much as you can while you're doing this. Travel down the inside and outside of the legs as well. And then when you get down to the feet and the ankles, make sure you've had a really good look around your feet and ankles as well. You don't do much targeting of them, but they get the benefits from the calves releasing, the knees releasing. And then we're going to bring the legs up, so sliding the knees out to the side, bringing them up, feet hip width apart, checking that they're in line with each other. You could do that by sliding the toes next to each other and then away. Bend the elbows a little bit so you soften up through the chest, and then focus on the breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. We always start the class like this. Getting everything slow so it gets the information that it needs. It's not being bombarded by other information. Your nervous system is just getting the information we want it to get. The information that's going to retrain your muscles to lengthen, move properly, move smoothly, be pain-free. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow the out breath down. This is as much part of the whole part of somatics as the movements. You are moving as you breathe, your diaphragm's moving, your rib cage is moving, all the muscles in between, your chest, your shoulders, eventually your belly. So make sure you have a look at your waist, what's going on in the sides as you breathe in and out. Aim that breath further and further down into the body. Expand into the belly. Some of us hold tight into our bellies from years of holding them in. We're letting them go. As soon as you feel that breath getting down into your pelvis, into the front of your pelvis, the back of your pelvis, down to your tailbone, your sit bones, the groin, the pubic bone, the thighs, then we're going to start gently arching. Breathe in, expand the belly, arch gently. Check out how your back feels, come down gently. Try not to use the feet, use the back muscles. Arching gently, remember the pelvis tilts forward as we arch and breathe in. As we breathe out, the pelvis tilts back. If you're somebody new to this and you're watching my hands, just watching the level that my hands are tilting, that's the way your pelvis is moving. I've got an arch and a gap under my back now, and then I'm coming down flat. And I'm watching and controlling this movement all the time, not letting anything bounce, not causing any pain anywhere. Noticing which parts want to take over. There might be your feet want to get involved, your thighs, your calves. Let's see if you can just use your abdominal muscles and your back muscles, letting go in the abdomen, lowering down in the back. So at any point you want to bring the shoulders in, the shoulders will just press gently back. At the same time as you breathe in. So we're not curling, we're just arching. We're getting a reminder of how our back muscles feel, what they're doing, the connections into the arms, the connections into the pelvis, the waist. And we work into this. Some of you might want to move ahead, some of you might be doing lovely controlled movements, you might be doing somatics every day. Some of you might never do it, have never done it before, so this is going to take a little bit of concentrating. Arching gently, maybe pressing the shoulders back, maybe not. If you want to move ahead because you're used to doing this, feels okay, then you could start gently beginning to tilt your pelvis into a curl on the out breath. That just involves you squeezing into the lower abdominal muscles, lifting the bottom of the pelvis off the floor, the one near the back of the thighs, and then tilting back the other way. So we're just beginning to do an arch and curl in a very small way. If you involve the shoulders, great. If you don't, doesn't matter. You might be really just concentrating on your pelvic movement. So we always end up doing this for quite a long while at the start of the class because it's whole body torso movement. There's a lot of muscles involved, a lot of concentration, getting them all to start doing something at the same time. And we want to make sure everything is lengthening and shortening quite happily before we start going into anything else. So you might spend 5-10 minutes doing this. If you start bringing the shoulders forward, make sure that when you release them back down to the floor to press backwards, that you've got control over that. I've got quite tight chest muscles at the front at the moment from not having very strong back muscles. So I have to be very wary when I first start out that my chest muscles are ready to let go and they're not bouncing, they're not hurting, it's not going to set me up for problems later, I'm not forcing anything or stretching. So breathing in, breathing out. This is not a fun video to watch, it's much more doing, listening, auditory, closing your eyes and getting involved. So if you are watching, it's the first time you want to join in, join in. So already I'm getting some control, everything's smoother. I've done a lot of walking today, a lot of sitting. So my lower back wasn't particularly happy and now it's getting happier. My chest muscles are happier. They're not bouncing, I've got control of releasing them back. My arms want to get involved a little bit, so I'm going to let them roll in and out a little bit. Don't want to lose control of the chest and back muscles by doing that. I'm going to investigate pressing a bit harder up into the upper back, curling a little bit more in the pelvis. Just turning my attention to different parts of this movement, not turning it into just a mindless arch and curl or a cat-cow in yoga where you're not really concentrating because you've got so many other things to think about being on your hands and knees. So we're going to carry on with this for about 4 or 5 more rounds. I apologise if you can hear my neighbours, they are lovely. And of course they're enjoying the sunshine, so we'll let them. Lawnmowers, I hope you can still hear me. And I hope they're not going to start telling secrets that you don't really need to hear. So my arch and curl's really getting up into my neck now. I can feel it in my shoulders, so I'm going to make sure my jaw's soft. Make sure I have the awareness of that chin movement. If it's causing problems in my neck, I'm going to make the movement a bit smaller. Or you might change the angle of your head. You might be pressing down into the floor and your head could just be tilted forward slightly to lengthen the back of the neck or shorten the back of the neck, and it might be a bit more comfortable for you. So I'm going to do 2 more. This might be really small. Some of you might be doing this in a really big way. You might be involved with your arms. And that's as much as we're going to do today in our arch and curl. And then we're going to let go gently. So when you finish your last round, bring your legs down. Let your knee fall out to the side. Knees even, both of them. Lengthen down, let go. Bend your elbow a little bit, elbows. I've only got one of each today. And let go. Soften everything, forget about everything, do nothing. So we're going to bring the leg up on the left and the right leg. I've only got one leg today by the sounds of it. One of everything. I'm going to adjust myself. And then all we're going to do is we're going to stick our legs together. So we're going to stick our ankles together and our inner thighs together and our knees together. We're going to bend the elbows a little bit, take the arms a bit wider so we're a bit anchored. Face the palms down, just to secure ourselves into the floor, and then we're going to gently take the knees from side to side. We're going to do it in a very small way so we can just feel it around the pelvis. So your feet might just slide past each other. Your knees are going to stay stuck together. We're not doing it we're not forcing them to stay stuck together. We just want to feel is the bottom, sides of the legs, inner thighs, how the pelvis moves, how it tilts onto each side, what the waist's doing eventually. So I'm doing this very gently. I'm just investigating to start with, feeling how the front of my pelvis feels at the pubic bone, where the muscles join across between the 2 pubic pelvic bones even at the front. How it feels to roll onto each pelvis at the back. And then I'm going to start doing it in a slightly bigger way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my feet together and then let them come up onto each other as I go to the sides. This is a little bit more, this is stronger. My right hip is already complaining about it, so I might not do that when I go over to the left. So it's alright when I take my left hip off the floor, but when I take my right hip off the floor, it doesn't really like it. So I'm going to just carry on with the sliding the feet past each other rather than stacking them on top of each other. But I am going to do it on the left because I want to get some movement up into the waist, a little bit more up into the shoulder, up into the upper back. I can still do that by sliding the feet. I just want to create a bit more space. So we just want to start feeling some lengthening, no forcing. We just want to get a little bit of twisting around the spine, in the sacrum, in the pelvic joints at the back. If you want to, you can start turning the head in the opposite direction to the knees. Feels quite nice to involve the neck. Breathe in as you take the knees to the side, breathe out as you come back. Now it's getting a bit swingy there, so I'm going to stop in the middle and then go to the other side. Now already my hips started letting go a bit, my lower back started letting go. So I'm going to see if I can stack my feet again. If you do get a bit carried away, you're swinging, then occasionally come back and just settle your pelvis back down before you go in the opposite direction. Feel that lengthening up into the abdomen, up into the rib cage, the upper back. Make sure your groin's not hurting. I've got a little too far on the right again, so I'm going to take it back a bit. So we're just going to do 3 or 4 more rounds of this. Some of you might be doing this in a really small way. You have to make sure that you investigate that. You may not stack your feet at all. So I'm making this the last one, and then I'm going to let my legs down. So sliding the leg down, resting into the floor, doing nothing. Couple of rounds of breath, doing absolutely nothing. Just breathing. And then we'll bring the legs up again. So this position is called the crooked position. So we come to the crooked position a lot. Make sure our feet are hip width apart, away from the bottom, not pushing tilting the pelvis up by being too close to the bottom, not tilting it the other way by being too far away. We're in a nice neutral back. You can investigate that by doing a little arch and curl. See how it feels to be quite soft and flat. So we're going to go into our arms. So you can do this with bent elbows, or you can do this with long elbows, which is what I'm going to do. So we're going to bring our arms up above our chest, and we're going to stick our palms together. We did do this on Tuesday, I think. Stick our palms together, bend the elbows a little tiny bit, but then keep them like that. They're not going to come apart now, unless you need bent elbows. If you need bent elbows, let them come down, let the shoulder blades sink into the floor a little bit, come onto sort of the upper arm a little bit, and maybe undo the palms. And then we're just going to slide to the left. So we're just going to take our upper body to the left and then come back to the centre. If you've got steeple arms and they're above your chest, make sure you settle your shoulders back in and you're not forcing anything. So we do it nice and slowly to start with, breathing in as we go to the side, breathing out as we come back. So we're just rotating our shoulders from side to side with long arms above our chest. Palms stuck together if you can, fingers intertwined, elbows. Don't lock them out, but just a micro bend. Pelvis isn't doing anything, it's just stabilising us. We take our arms to the side, we come back to the centre, and we rest that shoulder down, the one that's been lifted, and then we go to the other side. So like we did with the hips, we're trying to settle the shoulders back down and then going off to the sides. Keep softening your chest muscles, let them go when the shoulders come back down. And then when you're getting a bit looser, just start thinking about the side of your body, how this translates into the side of the body, down to the waist, down into the lower back, across the abdomen diagonally. Think about the muscles that are letting go when you do this. when you come back to settle. So you're tightening into your muscles across the abdomen and the side of your body, in your chest. So make sure everything softens when you come back. It's nice and relaxing. Keep your neck soft, your head's turning with your hands. Should have said that earlier, shouldn't I? Chin staying in line with your breastbone. I'm going to do 3 or 4 more each way. Remember to bring your arms down if it's too strong for your fingers, you're getting any tingling or any sensations that aren't comfortable, then make it smaller or bring your arms down. Try not to let any bouncing or ratcheting happen, which might happen as you get bigger. Or if you get a little bit mindless about it, you start forgetting what's going on, getting a bit drawn away into what's for tea or whatever else is going on. So I'm going to do 1 more each way. And then I'm going to bring my arms down gently, gently, gently for my chest, being mindful of my chest. And then softening my legs down and letting go. So we've got some movement for our waist. We've got some movements along the spine. We've done some twisting, we've done some lengthening. So we're going to go onto our sides and we're going to go into the position I talked about at the start of the class. So we're going to come onto our sides, bringing our knees up, coming over gently. Either have a pillow or bring your arm under your head and rest. So I'm going to slide down a little bit so if anybody's watching, they can, actually physically watching, not just listening, they can see my shoulder. So my thighs are 90 degrees to my belly and my calves are 90 degrees to my thighs, like I'm sitting in a chair, and then they're stacked on top of each other. So the hips are stacked on top of each other, so the knees can be stacked on top of each other. And then I'm going to lengthen my body and make sure my shoulders are stacked on top of each other. So you're not tilting forward through your torso, you're not tilting back through your torso, you're trying to get this very nice sideline position where if you were between 2 panes of glass, you wouldn't smack into them. And then your arm is resting on your side, and then we're just going to take the shoulder up towards the ear and then bring it back down again and then take it in the opposite direction. And we're going to get an idea of our range, which we'll know quite quickly. It'll either hurt or it'll bounce. And we're just going to spend the next few rounds bringing the shoulder up towards the ear, sliding it away. Feel the squeeze in your waist. If it's not in your waist and it's in your back, you're tilted too far forward. If it's in your abdomen, you're tilted too far back. So I've had to adjust because I can feel it in my back more than my rib cage moving down towards my pelvis. So this is quite smooth for me because I did quite a few of these last night when I had a sore neck. So I've got quite good control over this, which isn't always normal. Some of you adjust your chin position, tilted down or tilted up. So have a mind of that. It might help you to tilt it up a little bit, it might help you to tilt it down a bit, it might help you to tilt it up towards the back of the room, shorten your neck muscles. You have to work out where the adjustments need to be. So I'm just sliding my shoulder up and down gently, feeling into it. I don't want it to bounce up and down. I don't want the muscles underneath my arm in the rib cage to bounce up and down. I'm just doing a nice smooth movement. You might need to bend your elbow a little bit. Try and rest the arm onto the side. That might make a bit of drag in the clothes. That's all right. That's not your body ratcheting. That's just the clothes getting in the way a bit. And that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take take my shoulder forward as if I'm taking it towards my breastbone, and then I'm going to do that same movement up and down in that range. So I'm just going to go up and down at the front now. If that's too strong,
you have to take it back a bit. So I've already gone too far into my chest muscles, so my neck's already said no, I don't like it. So I've had to move back a little bit. So we're just going up and down in that range. So I can feel that in between my shoulder blades now a bit more. So I'm going to have some awareness that I'm not going to make it too big when I'm doing that. To do a few rounds there to investigate and get the muscles moved smooth. We don't need to do loads of these because they're only little movements, and as long as you've got control, that's all we're aiming for. So that might be a tiny movement, it might be like a movement for some of you. We're going to go back to the middle, rest our arm for a second or two, and then we're going to take the shoulder back. So that's going to leave a little bit of lengthening in the neck at the front. It's going to do a little bit of squeezing into the shoulder blade at the back, and then we're going to do that same movement up and down in that range. Now already my body is saying, oh, I'm not sure about this. There's a little bit of bouncing. I'm having to concentrate a bit more than normal. I might change my neck position a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't like me squeezing up into this position, so I'm going to just take my arm back a little bit further and see if that makes any difference. Does if I do it in a small way. So we're just going to go up and down, find where it's comfortable, we've just changed the angle of that up and down movement. So we've done 3 different ranges. So I'm only going to do about 3 or 4 more. You don't have to worry too much about your breath, just breathe normally. If you want to, you can breathe it in as your shoulder comes up, breathe out as your shoulder comes down. If you really kind of feel inclined to bring the breath in, some of you might. And then I'm going to rest my arm, so I'm just going to let everything soften. Got a pillow, make sure you're softened and rested into it all the time, even when you're doing this. And then I'm going to keep my arm rested on my side. I'm going to take it forward and back. So I'm going to take it kind of west to east. So I'm going to squeeze into the chest muscles, and then I'm going to take the arm back. So your hips are going to stay where they are. They're not going to tilt with this. If they are, you're doing the range too big. You want to make this about your chest muscles and your shoulder blade and the back of your shoulder blade. So in between your shoulder blade and your spine. So kind of keep the arm soft. It's kind of dragging forward and back. So this is not about you tilting forward and back with your rib cage or your waist. This is about the upper body right at the top, chest muscles and the muscles in between your shoulder blades, and just going east to west. Whereas we were going north to south with our up and down to the ear. Quite often I have a problem with this. This is a weak shoulder that I had injured years ago doing salsa, being flung about by somebody who wasn't very good at salsa. So I've had a weakness in here, and I do strengthen it, and it does get stronger, and then I go out and I throw dog balls, and then it doesn't like it again. So actually it's pretty smooth today. Like I said, I did quite a few of these this morning. Actually, it wasn't in the night. So we're going to do a few more rounds of this. Keep the weight of your arm into the side of your body with a bent elbow. Make it about the rib cage. That's as far down as you're going, really. The waist is letting go a little bit side to side. It's not moving. Your hips aren't moving. If you're watching me, I'm going quite fast. Slow it down a bit, but actually it's quite smooth. So I've not got much of a problem with this. And then we're going to rest. Now, have your couple of rounds of breath where you do nothing as ever. Now you could take the shoulder up and do that movement again with your shoulder high up by your ear. You could take it down, move the shoulder away and do that chest movement forward and back in that range. We're not going to do that today, but that is something else you could do. playing around with the angles. What we're going to do next is we're going to do some rounds. So we're going to very small circles in the shoulder. Whichever way you choose to do them, keep them tiny. It's like you're kind of going round on a two-piece. Got a two-piece piece in the middle of the centre, and then that's as big as you're going. And then you're going to slowly spiral out, making it bigger each time in a very small way, as if you were kind of making that two-piece circle a millimetre bigger each time. Because you want to find where the bouncing, jolting is. If there's any problems, any bouncing, any jolting, you want to stay at that area. So I've got one at the front near my chest. So I'm just going to go back and forth around that quarter of the circle. Just going back and forth in a kind of arc, a little mini quarter arc. Back and forth in that range, getting my brain connected to those muscle fibres. Reminding them that they've got a job to do and they have to let go. They have to be controlled to make this movement smoother. And then I'm going to try again, go around a few more times, feeling into that. It might be that I have to make the circle smaller again. Might be that it bounces because your neck muscles aren't letting go happily, so you might want to go back and forth around another part of the circle. Mine's the back, my neck muscles at the back aren't very happy. I might change the angle a little bit. Might be squeezing into them too much. Might not fully have my neck rested into the head rested into the pillow or my hand. I told you this was slow. We change directions. So have an investigation of taking your shoulder in the opposite direction. Might be easy to do, might be harder to do. Remember, at any point, if this is too much for you, it's too achy, change the angle, rearrange yourself a little bit, have a rest, come back to it. I'm trying really hard to not let this bounce, and we definitely don't want to make anything hurt when we're doing this, so we're going to keep it really small. If it's aching because you've got a frozen shoulder or something else that's going on, then you're going to just do it for a little while. So we're going to rest. You can always come back to this. You could do it for hours on end. You could just do it for a little while each day. So we're going to do a similar thing in the hips. So make sure your hips are stacked again. You haven't rolled out of them while you're concentrating on that. Make sure your knees are stacked on top of each other. Your feet are on top of each other. And then we're going to send our knee forward. So the knee goes forward. You need to use your hand. It slides along the lower thigh and then it comes back again and then it goes back in the opposite direction. And we're trying really hard to keep the rib cage still. So you might need to put your hand on the rib cage to hold it there to start with. You may not move your hip very much at all. This is a really difficult thing to do if you haven't done it before, to get the momentum of this movement without switching everything else on or making everything lean and tilt. So this is coming from your lower back muscles releasing, your abdominal muscles releasing, the muscles in your groin, the muscles around your bottom. Lengthening and shortening. I'm holding my rib cage because I know that my hip on this side is not particularly happy. It's tilted back, so it's not brilliant. I'm slightly out of line, which changes day to day. And I'm aiming for a nice, smooth, gliding movement in my pelvis. You breathe in as you go back, breathe out as you come forward. Keep it small. If you've got your rib cage not moving, you could go back and just push your bottom forward, so the upper knee goes forward of the lower knee. Everything's rested down, nothing's up in the air, and then draw the thigh back to bring the hip back behind the lower hip. So it's just a forward and back movement of the knee and the pelvis. You should feel it in your waist. Probably feel it in the bottom. Some of you have got problems. If you have got problems, you feel it in the bottom, then you're doing it too big. If it's ricocheting, bouncing forward and back, then you're much too big in the movement. So I'm going to just do a couple more. And then I'm going to rest on my side. And then I'm going to make sure after I've had my couple of breaths that I'm aligned again, that my knees and my pelvis are stacked on top of each other. I'm not tilting forward or back through the top of my body. I'm going to rest my arm on the side of my body, and I'm going to lift my bottom towards my ear, or my hip towards my ear. So I squeeze into my waist muscles, and then I'm going to send that pelvis back down towards the bottom of the mat. You might feel that your lower waist lifts up a bit, and then I'm using my hand because I know on this side of my body it doesn't want to do this movement, and for you to do this movement it's quite unusual anyway, to let go in the waist muscles. And then eventually, when my brain is caught up with what I want it to do to that area, I'm going to take my hand away and just squeeze up into the waist. So I'm squeezing up into the side of my body, and then I'm letting that go. So I'm letting my pelvis move away, squeezing, shortening the muscles in the side of the body as my pelvis lifts up towards it, moving the pelvis away. If this is your weaker side, you might have to send the pelvis away with a little push and then draw the bottom up with a little pull. So we're doing a very small hip up and down movement, ear to hip to ear. The pelvis is stacked up, and your thigh is just kind of rolling forward and back as you shorten and lengthen the waist muscles. Doing it very small because my bottom muscle's just having a bit of a complaint. I'm going to change the angle, tilt back a little bit. If you're feeling in your abdomen at the front, then your abdominal muscles doing the work. If you're feeling in your lower back, then your lower back muscles are doing the work. So you might have to just tilt forward and back just to find where your waist muscles are actually getting involved properly. So that's that little space between your pelvis and your rib cage on the side of your body. So I'm going to stop that now and have a little rest, do nothing. It's very, like I said, this is very intense. It's a lot of concentrating. It's quite exhausting actually to when you do it properly. Invariably I wouldn't do the two together, but I want you to sort of see the two different things. You don't have to do them at the same time. You could just do your shoulder if you've got a shoulder issue. Oh, my shoulder feels nice. You could just do the hips. So the last thing we're going to do with the hip is to just do a circle. So I'm going to do those movements that I just did, but turn them into a circle in a quite small way. If you're watching this, you're probably not going to see anything happening, but I'm concentrating on taking my pelvis away from my ear, sliding the knee forward, bringing it back up towards my ear, and then coming back, sliding the pelvis back. So it's a circle of sorts. It might turn into more of a square. And the sole aim is not to let anything bounce, not to cause any pain. So this might be a tiny little movement, circling the ball and socket joint in a very small way. There's a lot of good lubricating the area. And then when I've had a few rounds that one way, I'm going to go back the other way. So I'm sending my pelvis back, bringing it up towards the ear, sending it forward, sending it away. Remember, if this causes any problems anywhere else, you don't like the sensations that are happening, make it much smaller. If it's too much, you're doing it kind of in a centimetre range and it's too much, then you won't carry on with this. Maybe you would just do the hip up and down, the knees forward and back. Sometimes it's just too intense for some people, especially if you've got really kind of underlying hip issues that need, more treatment. So be mindful of what your limitations are and what you can and can't do. So I've done a nice few rounds of circles, squares, and then I'm going to rest on my side and let go. Do nothing. So because this is a 45-minute class, I'm just gonna modify everything a little bit. I'm gonna go over onto my other side. I'm gonna forget about the leg lift. We'll do that another time because this is quite intense anyway. We're gonna have a little rest on our backs before we get onto the other side. Just feel how that feels through that side of your body. It's all tilted over to my right side now, which is nice. Usually it's tilted onto my left, so that's good. I've adjusted my pelvis already with that movement. So then I'm going to, for the benefits of the camera, I'm going to turn around and do a little bit of a shifty round. And then I'm going to move up. You're not going to do this. Well, unless you want to. And then I'm going to get myself in a different position. I'm going to work on the other side. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes doing those hip movements again. Hip and shoulder movements again. So I'm going to lift my shoulder up to my ear, slide it away, and then carry on that process. So I'm going to let you do that in your own time. So I'm just going to work on the ear up and down. Think about what we talked about on the other side. Squeezing up, making sure there's no pain. Adjust your position, make sure you're on your side properly, your knees are up. So we're just squeezing up and down, arm rested on our side, shoulder to ear. I'm adjusting my chin occasionally just to check that everything's okay and that this movement's smooth. There's no pain, nothing's hurting. Bend the elbow a little bit if your arm is sore. Feel the squeeze in the rib cage into the waist. Remember, you can breathe it in as the shoulder goes up to the ear. Breathe out as it comes down. We'll do a few rounds like that, and then we'll change the angle. So have a little rest on your side. Bring your chest muscles forward, so keep the pelvis where it is, not tilting the whole pelvis, and then do that squeezing up and down in that angle. So your shoulder is further forward towards your chest, but we're going up and down to the ear again. Try and keep the arm rested down as much as you can on your thigh. Might be a bent elbow that's needed for that to happen. Feel the squeeze down into the waist as the arm reaches down again. Any bouncing or ratcheting means there's something that's not working properly, needs a bit more concentrating, must be a bit smaller in the movement, a bit slower. Find where it is, work in that little small range about that area. And then I'm just going to do one or two more, and that's in that range with my chest muscles squeezed in a little bit. And then I'm going to rest on my side, do nothing, a couple of breaths. Doesn't have to be very long. You just got to make sure that you've done nothing for a bit of time. And then I'm going to squeeze my shoulder back a little bit between the shoulder blades, and then I'm going to work in that range, up and down. Remember, this is perfect if you're getting shoulder pain in the night, neck pain, before you go to sleep, when you wake up in the morning. If you do it in the middle of the night, if you wake up in the night to go to the loo, maybe you've got some neck pain or something's going on, then this is a great one to do because it will knock you out. You'll be fast asleep within 5 minutes because of the concentration. The brain just going now, switching off. So we're in the back range, we're squeezed in between the shoulder blades a little bit just to round the shoulder back, And then we're going up and down to the ear. Squeezing into the waist again, probably a little bit more into the back this time, lower down. And then I'm just going to do one more in that back range. And then I'm going to rest my arm on the side, do nothing. And then we're doing east to west. So we're just going to rotate the shoulder forward and then bring it back again. So we're using the chest muscles and we're using the back muscles. We're going to keep the torso and the waist where it is. We're just thinking about the rib cage again. Lengthening down into the back, lengthening it into the abdomen. Bouncing, ratcheting means it's not happy, so slow it down. It might be a tiny bit of movement. You might hardly go past the midline, some of you. If you're holding all the weight up in your arm into your neck, then let it go. Rest the arm on the side. Just rolling forward and back. And then I'm going to let go and rest. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some small circles in that shoulder. Very small to start with, to investigate around that 2p. Got some bouncing in this side. You'll find out where it is. It's down, low down at the back. So I'm just going to do some movements around that area, forward and back, very small way, it's less than an inch probably. This is where the falling asleep comes in. I've seen lots of my class members fall asleep at this point. You do a tiny movement in a very concentrated way. The brain soon wears itself out and goes, I'm going to fall asleep. So I'm just going to go back to the circle, notice if it bounces again, if it's any smoother. Even if there's a little bit of progress, it's better than nothing, because if I just keep repeating these movements, knowing where that area is next time, and then do some circling in the opposite direction. Considering this is my better shoulder, it's much more bouncy than the other side. A good watch of this, see what's going on. Seems to be the same place in the back of the shoulder blade. Let's get out, it's getting it now, getting a bit smoother. And then just going back into your circle. You might not be doing things at the same time as me. You might have fallen asleep. That's all right, I'll let you off. I can't fall asleep with my foghorn voice. Yeah. Slow it down. Yeah, still got some bouncing. So that'll be something that I concentrate on next time. So I'm just going to rest my shoulder, let go, do nothing. And then I'm going to concentrate on my hips. So make sure your hips are up to 90 degrees to the body, 90 degrees to the calves. Make sure you're long, nothing squashed, and then sliding that knee forward and back. So I'm trying to keep my upper torso from moving, which it is in the main. It's better than the other side through this waist. My pelvis isn't tilted back on this side. It's much smoother. I could probably do it in a much bigger way without moving my upper body, without anything bouncing, without having a loss of control. Obviously, you've got your trousers or your leggings or whatever you're wearing. you know, they're pressed together, your thighs, so that might be causing a little bit of bouncing. So just bear that in mind. It's not just your hips that are bouncing. Remember, you can put your hand on your hips, send it forward and back. It's sliding across the lower thigh, just sending the upper knee forward of the lower thigh. It's not a very big movement. There's nothing dramatic about it. I'm not lifting my leg off the lower calf. Just trying to send my pelvis forward and back. It's not a natural movement. We don't think about this, but it does. It is involved in walking. These muscles letting go. So we want to get some smooth releasing around the waist. So I'm just sending my hip forward and back. I'm using my hand to a degree. You can put your hand behind the pelvis and push back against it and see what happens. You could put your hand in front of the knee and push forward against the knee. See what happens. Just giving a bit of feedback to the brain so it knows it's got to kind of do a bit of resistance. Just for a couple of seconds and then go back to it and see what happens. We're going to do a couple more rounds forward and back. You can see why I don't do this in the class. It does take a lot of time. And then have a little rest. And then we're going to send the pelvis away. So the pelvis is tilting. You'll feel your lower waist engaged probably. Send the pelvis, the hip down towards the bottom of the mat and then bring it back up and squeeze into the waist if you're trying to bring the pelvis up towards your ear. If you can feel it in your lower back, then you're not in the right position. You can feel it in your front of your abdomen, you're not in the right position. You want to feel it in your waist. So I'm going to tilt back a bit because I can feel it in my lower back, my pelvis. I'm going to tilt back a little bit, that's it. Now I can feel it more in my waist. So I'm going to use my hand to guide the pelvis forward and back to start with. I don't really need to on this side, but just because I haven't done it for a long time, just want to feel what range I've got. And then I'm going to take my hand away and just let my lower waist get involved, shortening and lengthening. And the waist on the top, squeezing my hip up towards my ear. Shouldn't be any bouncing, ratcheting. We're going on a little bit more than 45 minutes, but that's all right, isn't it? Who cares? Got all the time in the world at the moment. Trying to make that smooth. If you can't make it smooth, make it smaller. Put your hand on your hip, help the brain get connected by giving it feedback with a hand movement. Showing it what you want it to do. So I'm making this the last round. I'm going to rest on my side. Do nothing. And then like I did in the shoulder, I'm just going to do some hip rounds. So it might be that you have to use your hand again to get this started. So you're just sending the knee forward, squeezing up towards the ear. You're going to be at different angles when you do your squeezing up towards the ear. Because your knee will be forward. We're making little circles in our hip. Might be bigger than 2p, it might be a 2p circle. Make sure you've got control over it. Your lower waist muscles aren't bouncing all over the place. Not hurting you. Let your bottom down towards the mat, send the knee forward. So at the moment I'm doing clockwise circles. If you find an area that's a bit bouncy, you're going to stay there for go forward and back around that area in a smaller way. A couple of centimetres, a centimetre. And then after a few rounds, you're going to go back the other way. So I'm going anti-clockwise now, obviously. If I was going clockwise before. State the obvious error. This hip's much happier than the other side. Not bouncing, nice and smooth, got control over it. I could make it bigger probably. I'm just going to do a few more rounds, investigating how much movement I've got in that hip, how much I can squeeze into the waist, how much I can send the hip away, how much I can send the hip back behind me, how much I can send it forward. It's nice and smooth. You can't see this, but it's a pretty big range, that hip. Could probably send it even further and still not be bouncing. That's great, isn't it? That's good to know. And then we're going to rest on our sides, do nothing, let go as ever. And then we'll gently come over onto our backs. Keep the head low. Bring the legs down, soften into the floor. Oh, lovely pelvis. Lovely lower back. And do nothing. And then when you've had a couple of breaths doing nothing, engage your brain again. Starting at the top of your head, scanning down both sides, taking in your shoulders that are lovely and soft now, aren't they? Down your arms. Check out your rib cage, side of your body, pelvis, abdomen, inside and outside of your legs, front and back, all the way down to your feet, taking everything in as you go. Noticing the differences. And when you've scanned both sides, front and back sides, then rest into the floor, do nothing. Enjoy doing nothing. Spend the next half an hour doing nothing if you like, I'll let you. But if you feel like you need to get on with things, then gently roll onto your side, bring your knees up first. Rest on your side for a couple of breaths. Or till you feel ready to come to sitting. When you do come to sitting, gently push up with your hands. Have a little sit. Oh, that feels better. My neck feels amazing. And then do whatever you need to do. So it was lovely. I hope you watched this video, listened to it, had a go at it. If you're visiting it, it's not live, then you can obviously come out, go into it. But these can be done in isolation. You could just lie down and do these shoulder ones without having done arch and curls, because they're fantastic for relieving pain if you do them in a really small way. Oh, that feels amazing. So have a lovely evening, and I'm doing a class tomorrow at 12 o'clock, so 11:50 for 12. So if you want to come along, I'm going to put my glasses on because I'm straining. Hey, ta-da! So if you want to come along to tomorrow's class, it'll be completely different again. If you want to check out the video from Tuesday and Wednesday, they're completely different as well. And if I don't see you tomorrow, then hopefully I'll see you sometime next week. I still can't see any comments. I know if people kept coming and going, maybe some stayed, maybe just people are finding it now, who knows. I'll check out later. And I'll post this on YouTube. So if you know people that watch things on YouTube because they haven't got Facebook, then let them know. And I wish you lots of love and being safe and healthy, and stay in over the weekend. Bye.